Hey, I'm Fred.
And I'm Ant.
And this is Creator Generation.
Create a generation of hype.
All right, Frederico, what is happening this week?
This week we're chatting with Matt Tabor from the Vsauce team, who predominantly works alongside Kevin on the VSAUCE2 channel.
So people always ask, like, what's Vsauce? Where did that come from? And it was like a random domain name generator. Bam, perfect. And then 10 years later and like 3 billion views now. And
Yeah.
it's shocking.
And they also have the really great podcast, The Create Unknown.
Looking forward to this one, Fred.
Before we get started, just a quick reminder that we have Changer College, which is going to help you become an even better YouTube creator. And you can find it at changercollege.com. That's CHANGER college.com.
Let's get into it.
Let's get into it.
Matt Tabor, welcome to Creator Generation.
Hey, thank you.
Thanks for joining us, mate. So, Matt, you know the drill. I'm shit at introducing people. So do me a favor and tell us who you are. What do you do?
Okay. I work with the Vsauce company. They do science and math videos. A lot of people know Michael Stevens. He started Vsauce. I mostly work with Kevin on VSAUCE2. And Jake Roper is on VSAUCE3. Michael's done just outstanding, crazy content for years where he takes some question and spends 20, 25 minutes on it in a way that you've got to watch the video like 3 times to get all the nuance. And he had a great YouTube original, Minefield, 3 seasons of that. I think it's all available for free now. Kevin's been doing a variety of content and evolved over time. Now he's doing a lot of paradoxes and cool math games, things like that. And Jake has a great new series, Could You Survive the Movies, where he goes through the science of what would happen to you in Back to the Future if you were Marty McFly, or Men in Black is a big one, Ghostbusters, Mad Max Fury Road as well. And the pilot for that was Home Alone, and that was really fun, going through all the stuff that happened that Kevin McAllister did in the movie to Joe Pesci and Daniel Stern. Is that his name?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
You know, the taller, goofy-looking guy? Yeah. So just a total array of content. And I work with Kevin on developing that stuff, producing it on the VSAUCE2 channel.
So before we get more into what you do at Vsauce, can we what's the history of Vsauce? Because it's one of those channels that's been there forever, and everyone sort of knows it, one of those big brands from YouTube. So how did it all go? How did it all start?
Yeah, Michael started things as kind of a gaming comedy channel way back in the day. I mean, it seems like forever ago. I mean, it must have been 10 years, if not more. And had some success with that format. I mean, he's a really funny guy. I mean, he's really witty and funny, and that translates well to the gaming humor stuff. And if you think of the style back then, it was sort of the kind of thing that would be on like a collegehumor.com type site. It was that style. And I forget which video he made, but it had kind of an academic bent. And it just blew up. I mean, it was really, really good. And he's like, oh, people like this. I'm exceedingly good at this. Maybe this is better than gaming comedy. I wasn't around at that time, and certainly didn't work with him then. But he evolved into what is currently Vsauce, and that's why he's Vsauce now. I mean, it is what it is. He's massive. It's crazy how many people watch his content, love his content, and have for so long. On our podcast, somebody asked us an awesome question the other week, which was, how long do you think it's going to be before the next Elon Musk or somebody like him says that they were inspired by Vsauce? Oh, probably not that long. A lot of people who started watching in their teens, now they're at that age, let's say they're like 25, 26, where they're starting on entrepreneurial stuff, and we're going to hear it a lot sooner rather than later. And I think that he is going to have a legacy, regardless of what he does from here on out. I mean, he's still going stronger than ever, right?
Yeah.
But if he stopped right now, I think he would have a legacy that dipped into inspiring a whole lot of cool things in coming decades.
That is really interesting. You don't people don't think about that. Like there's this generation of YouTubers now who have such enormous influence, not just from like a brand point of view, but they actually influencing the way people do things with their lives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Impact rather than
yeah.
influence. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, there are people who have been following along with some of the other OGs, like iJustine, I love, right? And iJustine has been at the beginning of almost everything. She was the first person to stream on Twitch when it was still Justin.tv.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was like 18th century, right?
Yeah.
But she's been around a really long time, and you see people refer to her and just say, like, I watched what you did a while back and saw that you continued to do it and do new stuff, and that's why I'm doing what I'm doing now. That's really cool to see, and I like the era that we're in because we're just starting to get enough time and space, about 10 years into this whole scene, to where we can see the influence on that next level.
And it's before we get sort of into Vsauce, sort of as that mega network it is now. You mentioned it started off something different. It was started in the gaming space, didn't it?
Yeah, that was a while ago, and I don't know the impetus on choosing that specific thing. But it's remarkable that where it started is so different than where it ended up.
Yeah. And do you know why? You meant not know why it started as a game. Why did it change into what it was?
I think it was a combination of things. I think probably the content was better. Maybe it was more scalable. I don't know about that, but I assume so. But I think it's a much better fit for Michael's mind and curiosity and his energy and all of that. He really can apply that in an educational topic constantly. Every video is going to have this driving curiosity that goes super deep into something. Like you jump down a rabbit hole, and when you get to the end of it, when you get to the bottom, there's another rabbit hole. You know, and then there are 5, and you have to choose which one that you go. Like it never ends, and he's just kind of genius level, you know, with curiosity, but in an accessible way, and that's why the audiences like him, because you're learning this stuff along with him in real time. That's a really unique thing, and I think that emerged over time that was a really strong format for him with really just who he is.
You mentioned the other day that it wasn't originally called Vsauce. What was the original channel name?
Oh, yeah, his username. He told this to us on our podcast was PoopLicker888, and I love this because it's so radically different. You know, if you asked a bunch of YouTube fans and creators and stuff like that, like, oh, you know, who's the sharpest education guy on YouTube? Like, a lot of them are going to say Michael.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, you must mean PoopLicker888. Yeah. But that's that creativity and the comedy that makes his stuff interesting to watch, is he puts the personality in.
Yeah.
You know, so it actually was a little bellwether, you know, like a little Easter egg of what was going to come.
Yeah.
That's like Sexual Lobster, another great channel, and he's like, it's got nothing to do with the channel. It's still a animated. It's quite funny. Comedy channel, but yeah, Sexual Lobster. It's like, why is it called Sexual Lobster? It's like, I just thought it was funny at the time. I wish I'd never called it that, but that's what it is now, and it's known.
That's kind of like Vsauce. So people always ask, like, what's Vsauce? Where did that come from? And it was like a random domain name generator. Yeah,
right.
Yeah. Michael said he just kind of sat there one night, like, click, 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 for hours to see what was available. Vsauce popped up. Cool. It's easy to spell. It's 5 letters. It's kind of snappy and catchy.
Yeah.
It's cool. It doesn't like lock you into anything. Bam, perfect. And then 10 years later, and like, I don't know, it's got to be over 3 billion views now. And the sheer amount of time that humanity has spent watching Michael, Kevin's, and Jake's videos it's shocking. And yeah, the origin stories on this stuff are really cool because they're not centrally planned.
Amazing.
They're really organic.
So we talked about Michael, Kevin, and Jake's as different personalities on the Vsauce network. But like, can you tell us, like, how did each of those? I mean, we know about Mike. How did Vsauce2 come about? Then how did Vsauce3 come about?
Kevin was into comedy and stuff as well. That was his interest years back, and I've known him a long time now. Yeah, over 25 years. and he was always just super creative into music. Like, I think in college, university, he did like sketch comedy, improv comedy, that kind of thing. And again, you see that in his videos that it permeates in kind of his on-camera persona. But yeah, he was making videos on YouTube, and a guy named Binky McFartnuggets, which, again, this is absolutely real. I think he sent Michael an email that was just like, hey, check out this guy. He's making funny stuff. And Michael liked it and said, asked Kevin to make a video for the Vsauce channel, and because at the time it was still comedy. And as things grew, it made sense to separate that into VSAUCE2. Got confusing, or not confusing, or they were worried about it getting confusing with two hosts on the same channel. We've talked a bunch about the format and programming and stuff like that, and it was a bit too much of a jumble in one space, so just made a second channel. And then a couple years down the line, Jake really wanted to work with the Vsauce guys. He was doing a thing, I think, for Scientific American, maybe, and happened to be working on the same floor as Michael and Kevin in New York City, and got to know them, and I think he kind of pitched them on another channel, like, hey, I'd love to work with you guys, kind of thing. And it worked out. He had a distinctly different style. He had different type of content. He was focusing on that science of gaming and film and that kind of thing. A bit more cinematic, too, because that's where his interests lie and his background is in that. So it was a really nice fit with the differentiation, where you've got three guys with some unifying features, unifying characteristics, one of which is that curiosity. Like that is the real binding force. But then each one makes their stuff in a completely different way. So you get some familiar things, and then you get the unique things to each of the three channels, and it's worked out quite well.
That is really interesting, because you'd think that three different channels, you'd have to be, you'd be worried about them separating in terms of identity, but they all have that Vsauce feel to them, right? That curiosity feel is strong amongst the channel, even though, one is, general science, one is more about math, and then the other one is about, film and entertainment kind of element to it too. But they all have that curiosity element, which is really strong.
It's a boy band kind of thing too, right? Where who's popular now with the kids? Is that like is like BTS one of these bands? Is that?
This is the worst room of people to ask that. You're Kenny Rogers. Yeah. I don't know what the hell Fred listens to, Beach Boys or some shit.
I was talking to my Uber driver about this morning. We were saying, like, what do you like? I love the Traveling Wilburys. Like,
so do I.
Yeah. I mean, that's old. Like, they're old, but
88.
Yeah.
Right. Which I remember when Handle with Care came out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember seeing the music video for it back in the day. Yeah, what percentage of listeners are going to?
No, I don't know, but I'll tell you what. In terms of collaborations, that was one of the most amazing collaborations.
You're right about that.
Creatives I've ever seen. Have you ever seen the video about it?
No.
For anyone listening, if you ever get a chance to watch probably not a DVD anymore, the video about how those guys got together and like over a weekend made this amazing album.
Yeah.
And in some of the songs they only did in one take was just it just shows you like people like George Harrison, Roy Orbison, all those guys, how talented they were.
Tom Petty.
Bob
Dylan. And the fifth was Jeff Lynne from Electric Light Orchestra. Yeah.
So just a little bit of a side, but that is truly a brilliant collaboration among artists.
But they had unifying features. Because you think about these guys, and they're all very, very different.
Yeah.
Like Bob Dylan and Jeff Lynne, in 1977, were doing radically different things.
Yeah.
Well, and Roy Orbison too, right? And they came together because they had this shared thing. And I mentioned the boy band part because, if you think about some of the older ones, like a Backstreet Boys, or Spice Girls, that's good too, right? Because they had such distinct identities. You've got these 5 people who are deliberately designed and named and dress in a way to be different, but then they're all doing the same thing and complement each other to get the product. And I think some of the best channels work that way when they have multiple people. And I think the affiliated channels, when you've got this little network like a Vsauce thing with different verticals in it. If you have that unifying feature and then you have some differentiation, you can make this work really well with different people.
No, it is incredible how they all tie together, and it's such an it's so entertaining as a network. But I think the really interesting thing is that often when people split off channels, they'll split different audiences. We'll go into different things, but with Vsauce, like I like all three channels, and some and watch all three together because that curiosity element is so strong amongst them. And yeah, the concepts are strong around that, so that makes it watchable by anyone who's generally curious, right?
Yeah, a lot of people do just plain like Vsauce, the group entity.
Yeah.
And some people do gravitate toward one or the other, or two out of the three. And Kevin was telling me at one of the VidCons a few years ago, this kid came up to the three of them and pointed at Michael and was like, "I like you." Pointed at Jake, "I like you," and pointed at Kevin, "I don't like you." And that's totally fair. Sometimes you're just into the certain topics and styles more. And I laugh at it because I know there are people who like Kevin and watch all of Kevin's videos and probably don't watch as much of Michael or Jake, if any. Yeah. So that's just the way it is on YouTube. But yeah.
It's probably just not the way to go about it, telling people that.
I wouldn't have said it that way, although I appreciate how bold that was. I mean, it's a good story, but yeah.
I thought he was in the YouTube comments. It's like...
So I remember we met at VidCon in the US, and I don't know if you remember this, but I was talking. I was talking to the internet historian, and he was like, "Oh, there's Kevin. I've got to chat to him, but he looks busy." And I didn't know who he was talking about. I wouldn't see where he was looking.
Okay.
And I was like, "I just call him over." And he goes, "No, he's busy." And I just sort of screamed like, "Kevin!" And Kevin turned around and saw me. He came over, and I'm like, "Oh man, this is the Vsauce guy. I didn't realize that." And then we just started chatting, and obviously then we had a chat, and we talked about, it's amazing how these conversations go from just like shouting across VidCon, and then next thing you know, you're in Australia. You're here in Australia.
Luckily, you didn't follow up with, it's Kevin. Yeah, I don't like you either.
No, I like
Where's
it.
Michael?
No, it's just cool. But yeah,
Kevin does have amazing fans, and
yeah.
It's really cool to see a lot of the comments, to see the people who love following his stuff, like in our podcast Discord, and also at the events. I love watching people come up to all of those guys and have conversations about some video, or just stand there like weirdly starstruck. There's a charm in witnessing that kind of thing, because they're all completely normal.
Yeah.
And you just want to grab the kid and just say like, it's really okay.
Yeah.
He's a totally regular guy.
Yeah. He was. I mean, I shouted out, and he literally came across and shook my hand and said, "Hey, how you going?" And I was like, "Oh, wow."
It's like another crazy man yelling at me. Okay, VidCon, all right, whatever.
But like the reason I like Kevin, especially apart from the other guys, is that because the area he talks about in terms of math is not something I'd usually be super interested in. But like you watch the videos, and he'd talk about something, and it becomes super accessible and super interesting, and that enthusiasm just goes right through, right from explaining a paradox to, explain the science of a pasta chair, right? That you guys did as well. So, it's great how you've created that network around that. But does that mean that now you've got to be very careful in terms of expansion about how you expand either from the channels or beyond the channels?
I'm sure that's constantly in Michael's mind. Yeah. I mean, that's really his thing, and They did expand to the Ding channel.
Tell us a little bit about Ding.
Do I have to?
You have to.
I have to. Ding was not always called Ding. So back in the day, the programming was really different on some of the channels. So this matters to this answer. So for example, on VSAUCE2, Kevin had a couple different shows. One was BDP, which stood for Build It, Do It, Play It.
Yeah.
One was FAQ. FAK, Facts and Knowledge, and Mind Blow was sort of like a science tech news brief. So one of the things that they did back then was called Do Online Now, Guys. The acronym for that is DONG. And it was really popular. People loved it and still love it. Where they would go to a site that was really cool for some reason. You're like, hey, you can go do this thing right now. Watch this video, go do it. So the Dong channel is the fourth channel in that network. I think now it's primarily Michael. He can do shorter, more off-the-cuff kind of videos on that. So it's a really good fit as he's working on the big, really complex stuff. But at a certain point, Dong probably was an algorithm, liability, I guess. I don't know. But it changed to Ding with an exclamation point, which I like that name better anyway. I like Ding with the exclamation point for the I. Mm-hmm. I like Ding, but it's always been Ding. It's never been called anything else. But it's a really cool addition to those 3 channels to have that more relaxed, kind of lower stakes format.
Yeah.
I like it a lot. So what's next? Who knows? I don't know if there will ever be a 5th one. I don't know. I don't know what Michael's thinking there, but they've gone in other directions with the YouTube originals, with Mindfield, with Could You Survive the Movies. Kevin's got several projects now that he's developing. And that's a really nice way to expand without coming up with like a brand new channel.
Yeah.
Fred, let's take a quick break here and just give ourselves a big plug. We are super excited by this new initiative. We have created the Changer Creator College.
The Creator College, quite simply, is a place where you can get a whole bunch of online courses, including our brand new Accelerate course for YouTube, designed to help emerging and new creators become even better on the world's biggest video platform. The reason we think it's pretty good is that it's not just our opinions, but the opinions of a bunch of really great creators and experts coming together to give you a very logical, structured course.
Damn right. It is the college just for creators. So check it out at
changercollege.com. That's CHANGER college.com.
So, like Vsauce as a network, it's one of those big groups on YouTube. There are not many of them around.
No, especially not so much anymore.
Yeah. I mean, you've got the guys who do like Unbox Therapy, and they've got like a pretty big sort of setup as well.
Yeah, Lou is great. Jonathan Morrison with TLD, and they have a good studio and pump out a bunch of content with a couple different guys. It's cool.
So your actual studio is in LA?
Yeah, Vsauce works out of LA. Yep.
Yeah, but the interesting thing about you guys is that you are nowhere near that, are you?
Not close at all.
Yeah.
No, I'm in New York. So
New York
State. Yes, state, not the city. Not the city. About a 4-hour drive from New York City. Yeah. So fairly well isolated.
And Kevin is?
Yeah, he's on the East Coast as well.
Right.
Yep.
Right. And so you guys aren't even near the home base.
No.
Yeah.
No.
It's interesting dynamic though. You still create regular content and you get things done and you run part of this enormous global network. How does that all work?
Yeah. It works very differently for Kevin than it does for me, because he's involved in the Vsauce stuff day to day. They have the Curiosity Box, which is a quarterly shipment of really cool things, right? And you can imagine all the work that goes into that every day, where they're talking about the products and like choosing this one or that one, or how to customize this thing, and talking about marketing it and the customer service and like logistics. Like it's a full on hour by hour business. So he has to be involved with that, which is hard from a distance. But you figure it out. You come up with a way to work. And then on the actual VSAUCE2 video side, we do everything remotely. We develop the ideas and get some things down on paper after the research and hit the creative side. He does the filming. We have a guy named Tom Carroll, who his channel is Aspect Science. He makes really beautiful content. That's something to check out. If anybody is a Vsauce viewer, they would love Tom and Aspect Science, and he helps us out with editing. He's in England. So we have this little network of people doing their own thing, communicating well despite the different time zones and very different jobs. And there's a level of independence that has to happen, that isn't going to be a good fit for everybody. There's a lot of self-direction. But at the same time, you learn how to be in tune with what the other people are doing and how to support what they're doing, and get help from others when you need it, even though you're in radically different places doing very different things.
And that's something we, excuse me, that's something we haven't really covered. You're not on camera on VSAUCE2.
No.
So what the hell do you do? Like, what is it that you do? Like, explain that so that not like, oh, what the hell do you do? You're just like hanging out in the woods or something.
This is like an Office Space when the guy
like,
gets called in and he's like, what is it you do here?
Well, because I think a lot of people would
feel this is like a little bit of an Australian thing. It may sound more insulting than you actually meant it to be. He didn't actually mean like, what the hell do you do? He meant, what do you do?
Because like a lot of creators would be like, well, if he's not on camera and he's not the talent and you're not editing it, how does this work? What do you do? Like, how does it all fit together?
I actually don't do anything, but Michael thinks I do, so he still like signs the checks.
Like, I don't think Michael and Kevin listen yet.
Can you just beep this out? Like 22 seconds of beep. So the way we work, we've done videos at about like one every 2 to 3 weeks. Okay, so it's really tough to find a topic that's going to fit. Okay, because very few people are interested in going for 12 minutes on a math-based game or a logic-based paradox. Science is a little bit of an easier sell because you can usually do something visually cool or like explain something mind-blowing in science and people are into it. Math doesn't work that way. Yeah, it just doesn't. And so you've got to find something that is at its core an entertaining, surprising, interesting premise, but one that you can talk about consistently without it getting boring, without like a 90-second dry dead spell, and that you can do something with it visually so that people want to watch this video and not click away. So there are a lot of very good topics on paper that would make for excellent articles. People make great book chapters out of them. They make for terrible YouTube videos. And so step number 1 is us choosing a topic and talking about, is this going to work? Can you call this something enticing enough for somebody to click on in the first place? Can you do something on camera, demo this in such a way that it's going to play well? You're going to have people sticking around till the end. That's really, really hard. Yeah.
And your process around that, is that just a lot of time in textbooks and Googling, or I must have brought 12 to 15 pounds of math books to Australia with me. And I had to put in my backpack too, because I could not take the chance of my luggage getting lost.
Right.
Like,
that's disastrous.
Wow.
So my backpack was MacBook, math books. But yeah, that's a good start. It's a really good start to do it that way. And then we talk about whether it's going to work. And the nice thing there is that Kevin and I approach things very differently. Very often, I'll think something is a great idea. I look at it and just know this one's going to bang. It's going to be great. And then he looks at it and he's like, this sucks, man. This isn't going to work. And then explains the reasons why. And he's absolutely and totally right. He's got this creative approach to it where he's seeing how this is going to play out visually and kind of mentally. So you get this mix of the creative on his side and analytical on my side, and that balances, and we kind of filter each other's best and worst ideas. So if we agree on something and we work out those kinks, what's left is probably going to be a decent video. They don't all turn out that way, and some surprise you where people aren't very interested, and others surprise you where it blows up and you're like, well, I knew it was a good idea, but not that good. But that's step 1, is that filtering process to figure out what the topic is going to be. And then it's going through that whole process of presenting the thing. We found that we can't have more than like 7 or 8 seconds where somebody's not getting hooked. If there's a monologue, for example, that's not going to work up front in a video. People aren't really invested yet. So if 7 or 8 seconds, we've got to keep it interesting. And so applying that to a topic can be pretty tough. But going through the detail and making sure this is going to be engaging, get it to a reasonable length. If there's any consideration with somebody who's sponsored a video, which is pretty rare, where that would have any effect on the content. But when that happens, that's a thing too. So yeah, just sorting it out there. And then Kevin films. When he films, I go back to the next video. So as soon as he's ready to film, I immediately get started on the next one.
Yeah.
And so that process overlaps a little bit, and we just roll in that cycle.
You talked about sponsoring a video. Obviously, as these big networks grow, you're not going to depend on necessarily YouTube revenue, and you want to build brand deals and stuff into it. It's an interesting balance between having a brand involved and actually staying true to your content as well. Do you have any stories about any sponsored videos you've done and how they sort of panned out and how you made that interesting?
Oh, yeah, we got a few good ones. The ones that I really like, there was one about 2 years ago, which Royal Caribbean Cruises sponsored Kevin to film the solar eclipse that was, the point of totality was over the United States. This is super rare, it was a once-in-a-generation kind of thing. And they'd made a cruise that would be directly under the point of totality in the ocean. That was how they sold the cruise. Like, you go on this cruise, we make a big thing out of it. They had Bonnie Tyler and Joe Jonas sing Total Eclipse of the Heart as this was happening. I mean, it was a big production, right? So Kevin had to make a video on that, and he gave a couple really good talks to the ocean goers, on the ship. So yeah, we only had one shot at that, and it was awesome for me because Eric Langley is a fantastic VFX guy and beautiful cinematographer. He had to shoot Kevin with this eclipse. You have to have a special lens to capture the sun, so that was one thing. Obviously, you only get one shot at this, and it's a fleeting thing, okay? Those poor guys were so stressed out, and I had nothing to do. So, I had no role in this at all. And it was amazing because somebody had to, hang out properly. So, I'm in the VIP area with Bonnie Tyler and Joe Jonas and the others. It's this little roped-off thing about the size of this room. And so it was awesome. And I'm, sipping champagne and looking over. And Kevin and Eric are just stressed out to the max. They look like they want to die, and the eclipse is kind of happening. I'm like, oh, so happy that I'm not responsible for this one. That was really cool, and it was a great video. This year has been awesome. We did a thing with the U.S. Navy where Kevin played Battleship inside a nuclear submarine with one of the Navy's nuclear technicians. That was cool.
You mean Battleship the game, not actual go to war with anyone. Battleship.
Yeah.
It was.
Good point. Yeah.
It was funny because we wanted to, it would have been amazing to work in a couple jokes like that. They wouldn't let it. They reviewed all the raw footage.
Right.
They wouldn't, before we left the base, they went through all of it before giving it back to us.
Right.
Yeah, so it was.
Fair enough.
You
I
couldn't do
guess.
something like, oh, what's this button do? But it was a really cool experience that he did a great job. Kevin did blending a video he wanted to make, which in this case, it was about the probability density of a game of Battleship and the optimal strategy to win in the fewest amount of moves. That's a video that he legitimately would have made in his studio. So as a collaboration like that, it was great. He wasn't sacrificing any of his creativity, and he didn't have to do anything that he didn't want to do. He got to make a video he'd make in a different situation in a collaborative process. So that was a really cool thing to see him execute.
Yeah. It actually is a really good video too, if you get a chance to see it. But another one I enjoyed was the pasta chair one.
Yeah.
You recently did, because I like the adventure side of that, getting out of the studio and building that and talking about it. You want to tell us a bit about that one?
No.
Still recovering?
I know. Yeah, that was in September. And Kevin submitted an idea to a sponsor who'd the channel had worked with in the past. Very traditional sponsorships, where it's like, thanks to LastPass for sponsoring this video, that kind of thing. they wanted to help him make something he otherwise wouldn't ever make, which is amazing. You know, massive thanks to them for taking that step. Some sponsors do that, and increasingly so. I like seeing this trend where they just say, we want to be associated with really awesome content. Let's help somebody make it. So it was cool to see them do it. He submitted an idea. By the time they said yes to that, the time in the calendar year to execute that idea had passed. There was a bit of a window seasonally where it would work. So they said yes to an idea that couldn't be done until the following year. Oh, we need something else. On a very tight deadline, Kevin says, well, I want to build a chair out of spaghetti. Well, okay, we'll figure out a way to do this. And they said yes. So as soon as they sent the thumbs up on that, it was a scramble. We had 7 days to assemble a team, get ourselves and that team to Rome. And
why Rome?
That's where the pasta is.
Come on. Of course.
I mean, we thought about it. It's like, oh, you could go to Walmart and buy a bunch of pasta and build this thing in your backyard. Yeah. Or even go and collaborate with somebody in the U.S. Who's great at this stuff. Yeah. You know, it would not be a bad video if Kevin went to like Mark Rober or Destin Sandlin of Smarter Every Day and they built this pasta chair. Like that would be a fantastic video. But it's really tough to secure anybody like that in days. Yeah. We thought, well, what's going to make it interesting is if we go to Italy to make this and we get a really nice setting for it. Luckily, there was a villa that was just incredible. It's just incredible. We were talking about what it would have taken if we'd had to shoot that in something like LA. We would have needed multiple sets. It would have been virtually impossible, probably actually impossible, to not have sound, not have all sound mucking up every step of the production. Instead, we had this like 3-acre villa in the middle of Rome that there's no sound other than a lot of birds. We needed help with this because it was such a tight timeline. We found a spaghetti building championship at a university in Hungary. So we sent them a cold email basically saying, do you have a couple people who want to come to Italy this weekend and build a spaghetti chair with us? We promise we're real. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the best you can do. And we tried not to stress out about it. Given the time change, we thought we'll just go to bed and hopefully we have a response in the morning. And if we don't, on to something else, I guess. So I booked those tickets not knowing if we were going to have a team in Italy. Yeah. I mean, we just got a direct flight out of New Jersey that would work for all of us to go to Rome and hoped it was going to work out. We got a response from these two guys, Norby and Johnny, who are champion spaghetti builders in Budapest. And they agreed to be there. Like, yeah, if you're going to grab our tickets and all that, we'll do this. And so I booked them that day. Dom Burgess, who's also amazing science channel, Everythink with a K. And he's fantastic on VFX stuff. Like he's a wizard. He came in from England to film for us. A bit of a short trip, England to Italy. That was easier than what we had to deal with. Then all of a sudden we had this team and a whole bunch of spaghetti and cannelloni. We started building a chair out of it. Yeah, and actually epoxy was a big deal too. You can't take epoxy on a plane because even though it's not so directly flammable, it's not going to combust on its own. But if there is a fire, it smokes very badly. So because of that, it's banned on planes.
All right.
Well, even in the EU as well. So even those guys, the Hungarian guys, couldn't bring it to us. We couldn't get the kind that we needed in Italy. So as a backup, I split up the epoxies in my luggage and hoped that it wouldn't get taken. It didn't. I'm not advocating bringing illegal epoxy on a intercontinental flight, but yeah, so it was just one of those things like stressing out over every little bit of this thing with no room for error because we had this villa for 3 days. had to get shot, and there was no fourth day. It had to get done. We got there in the end,
And
it worked out.
You hadn't tested the chair design before either.
No. It was purely Norby and Johnny and Kevin's engineering, guessing at what was going to work.
And you just went down to the store, bought some pasta, and just made
That's
it out of
right.
that, right?
Yeah, I don't know if they used a GoPro or what. They had some small camera where it shows them. Yeah, they went down to the grocery store and loaded up with pasta.
Right.
And it was a problem, too, because they were assuming that they'd be able to use 100% whole wheat pasta, which is quite strong. The semolina flour is really hard stuff when it's dried. They could only get egg-based pasta, and egg is far more brittle. It was going to be a wheat-based chair probably would have supported twice the weight.
Yeah.
So when there was only egg, there's this moment of stress where it's like, can we even pull this off?
Right. Yeah.
And we didn't know if it was going to work. I liked that tension in the video, but because we didn't know, we tested it on a diving board over the pool at the villa. If it works, cool. If it doesn't, Kevin goes in the water. We get this fantastic failure.
Yeah.
So it was really fun to see that play out and deal with all the challenges along the way on it.
Yeah, you should check out the video if you're interested in how that
plays
panned
out.
Yeah,
I think it's called Can Pasta Hold Your Weight?
interesting. Yeah.
It sounds like you, either by design or by it just keeps happening, that sort of pressure of time and challenge does that help the creativity a bit, like for you guys? Do you think the having limited amount of time and sort of ride that wave of creativity?
I feel like this is sort of where kids and university students are like, I do my best work at the last minute. And you think that at the time. And now that I'm older, I look back, I'm like, no, you absolutely don't do your best work at the last minute. If you work at it for 2 months, it's obviously better. But, it can spur you into doing things that you otherwise might not consider, which is cool in that creative process. What I really like about it is that it forces you into decisions. That's massive because you simply don't have a choice. You can't mull over every option when you're on such a tight time crunch. Now, as an example, on that pasta video, there was a miscommunication on bringing dowels that were going to serve as supports for gluing the pasta together to make the legs. You put the dowel in the middle, shoot them all down, and then glue them together. You've got to have a tube like this to form these legs. Long story short is none of us brought that. We needed it at about 2 a.m. Nobody had it. We couldn't go to a hardware store and get it or anything. There was no Walmart nearby that was 24 hours that sold dowels. So we had to figure it out. If we'd had more time, we would have gone to bed and the next day gone and got dowels. What ended up happening is I noticed that the stands for the lights on the outdoor shoot were just about the size that we needed for dowels. They were made from metal tubing, and if we took a grinding cutter on a rotary tool, we could cut the legs off these and have metal dowels that will serve for this. It's a cool part of the video to see them cut that apart and make do on it. That only happened because we were in a tight time crunch. It added a cool creative element that wouldn't have been there if, number one, we'd planned better, number two, had more time. So, yeah, it definitely can make things more interesting. It's way more stressful. The moments before we realized the metal was there, they weren't good moments. Yeah. They were high blood pressure, near aneurysm moments because we actually needed that time for the epoxy to dry, or to cure, rather. It takes a full 24 hours to cure. We were worried at that point about the noodles, the strength of them with the egg-based. So we could not afford to deal with it in the morning. We needed that 8 hours for the epoxy. So it really sucked until we found a solution.
Yeah, I guess most people don't plan on their shoot to just chop up their light stands.
No.
Then we chop up the lights.
Shifting gears a bit, I want to talk about young creators or new creators who like look up to Vsauce and they really want to make a career on YouTube. Is there room for new creators to become that next Vsauce or the next big network on YouTube?
Constantly. And it will never end. It will never end in the educational or informational space. As long as reality exists, there are people who need to explain cool parts of reality.
Yeah.
So there's a never-ending supply, and I know that people always think, oh, there's so many people doing this. Like with science content. Yeah, it might be a little tough to stand out in the space initially. So what? That's like saying, well, like, oh, I'm not going to write this song or ever perform it because there are a lot of songs out there. Yeah, there are a lot of songs out there. It makes no difference. It's not like music has stopped because we got full. It's the same way with YouTube stuff. So you always do it differently. And we were talking the other day about this, about how you can do the same topic that other people have done. It's not going to be the same. You're going to do it differently. You're going to talk about different stuff. Even if you tried to make an exact replica, you wouldn't be able to do it. Because of that, there's nothing that's off limits. There's nothing that's saturated. Some things are better than others. I mean, there are certain niches that I would say, well, you're going to have a tough time. It's going to take a long time to establish yourself here. Not so much in this other space. Consider that. But anything's possible. I mean, nobody should look at it and say, well, we're at capacity.
And YouTube is such an amazing place to learn things. There's always going to be that curiosity, right? So there's always that room to not just create something entertaining, but enriching as well.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, we saw a video the other day about a family, and the daughter was born with very small eye, no eye in one of the eye sockets.
Okay, yeah.
And they needed to put a prosthetic eye in the place because if you don't, apparently the skull collapses on itself.
Right, like a placeholder.
Yeah, like a placeholder. Yeah. And when she was young, they went to a doctor to get it done, and apparently it was very traumatic, and the mole got stuck, and the baby was crying, and the parents were traumatic, and the dad was like, you know what, I don't want to put my daughter through that, so I'm going to build my own prosthetic eye. I think his wife was like, I don't know if it's going to work. But he went to YouTube and he figured out how to do it. And, through trial and error, he actually built his daughter a prosthetic eye.
That's nuts. That's
it's
awesome.
Nuts. And it was so fulfilling that he did it for more people. And he went overseas to learn how to become, I think it's called an oculist, to learn that, to do it for other people. But he started from, that value from education you get on YouTube. And it made me think, like, man, the amount of value people can get from educational content is incredible. And it almost has no limit. You'd never have thought that someone could learn how to make an eye for a child.
It's crazy. It's available there.
Yeah.
There's no end to it.
Yeah.
And another example of this, which I love because you'd think it's some of the most boring stuff possible. A friend of mine, his name is Sean Malone. He has the channel for the Foundation for Economics Education. Would it be possible for you to name a channel something more boring than something about economics education? This is grim. These are not going to be sexy videos, right? No, not right. What Sean does that's so amazing is he has a series called Out of Frame where he looks at different movies and talks about the role of economics in them in a way that you don't even realize it's about economics. So, for example, he did a couple videos on why Thanos is wrong in the Avengers stuff. Why the notion that you snap your fingers and get rid of half the population, it makes the planet better and this and that. Why that's just completely the wrong approach and doesn't work the way Thanos thinks it's going to work. That's really interesting. Really interesting.
Awesome.
Yeah, and he's had tremendous success with that series.
That's cool. Importantly, Matt has mentioned very, very briefly that you have your own podcast as well with you and Kevin.
Oh, yeah.
The Create Unknown.
Yeah.
And you are the featured talent. You are in that as well. So
right, yeah.
Tell us a bit about that because it's somewhat similar to what we're doing here, but maybe not quite as good, but you know, it's pretty good. Like, it's good. It's worth listening to. Like, it's good.
And you can watch it too.
Yeah, you can watch it too. It's on YouTube as well.
That's right. It's on YouTube and every podcast platform in existence.
So it's probably more available than us. Yeah.
And we'll put a link to it.
Yeah. Well, but tell us a bit about that. What's the go with that?
We talked to a bunch of different creators about their creative process, sometimes about the business side, how they've developed a sustainable model. Everybody kind of does it differently, and there are still some features that run through all of them. I've alluded to a couple things earlier, like talking about iJustine. Her evolution over the years has been incredible. Very few people can talk about that kind of thing because so few were around at that time. So we'll do something like spend an hour talking to her about how she started as kind of an Apple fangirl and went from there and went through all of these iterations of different platforms to get to the one that she's on now. And who knows what she's going to be doing in 5 years. It's really cool to see the flexibility that she has and the comfort with evolving. That's awesome. Kwebbelkop, who makes gaming videos, is an absolute business genius. Talking to him about the process that he's created with multiple people in different places. I saw on Twitter the other day, he met the guy who makes his thumbnails for like the first time in 3 years or something. I mean, he's been working with him for a long time, but they hadn't been in the same place. But he has a very efficient system of filming content, getting it through his pipeline, and out on the other side. So we'll talk about things like that. Casey Neistat, I mean, Casey's Casey. Like, he's all over the place in the best possible way. And that was just a free-form kind of conversation. And then sometimes Kevin and I will talk about an issue that has popped or something that we've wanted to talk to people about for a long time. One that we loved was this meme that's going around about how you shouldn't take criticism from anybody you wouldn't go to for advice. And the graphic that really got shared a lot had Morgan Freeman on it. For no good reason. He's not the one who said this. But people really loved that. And it had like 250,000 likes on Twitter. That advice sucks. That's the worst advice possible. You should very smartly take criticism from everybody, including your audience, all the time. And if you do it the way that meme says you should do it, you're going to be missing out on a lot of really important stuff. So it took us an hour to talk about that.
Awesome.
So it's a range of people and us drawing on the 15, 20 years that we each have in different facets of the media game.
So based on that, and what would your top 3 tips be for emerging or new YouTubers or any YouTuber who wants to be like a Vsauce or anyone big?
Yeah. Start and actually do it, because the way, like, I know people say that all the time, but you have to be realistic about what it means when people say the just do it stuff.
Yeah.
People are still nervous about it. But the reality is, who are you going to disappoint? Your 0 fans?
Yeah.
Yeah. This is very low stakes. It's really about you. So kind of get over yourself and do it and go from there. And figure out along the way what you like doing, what you don't like doing. You've got to get comfortable. We've all talked about stuff like the burnout and stresses and all of that for a long time now. Really helps when you know yourself at the very beginning. So that's a really important part of it. It's actually important to feel nervous about it when you make the stuff. Because then you figure out what to avoid, what to get better at, what to tackle head on. You've got to do that. It holds more people back than anything else. That's one.
It's a big one.
It's
a good one.
It is a big one, and so much is wrapped up.
Yeah.
So much is wrapped up in that. Yeah.
Any others?
Any others? Yeah.
That's it.
I want. What
There
about
is nothing more.
in your time with Vsauce and other really successful creators, and also, you know, from talking to them through your podcast, is there any common trait or traits across the board that you see?
It's tough to make a ruling on that right now, because I think some of the traits or lack of traits are going to show up a couple years down the road. So, for example, the people who are comfortable getting help with different parts, they're doing really well now. I can't say that some people don't who don't go for help are going to have a rough time because they're not having it yet. You know, it's sort of like looking at a stock price and feeling like, well, this stock's going to go up and this stock's going to go down. You know, I'm predicting the future here. But yeah, the ones who are extremely honest with themselves and open to working with other people in all sorts of capacities, whether it's trusting them to do a rough cut edit on your video, whether it's trusting somebody to rough up or even completely write a script for you. It could be on the business side, where we were talking this morning about how some people would rather have 100% of a small pie that they bake themselves than 80% of a massive pie that they got help with. So getting a mentality where you get comfortable with help, finding value in it, to make your life easier, to make more money, or whatever it is, just something of value to you, the people who do that tend to be much, much better off.
Yeah, that's
Very good.
awesome advice. All right, Matt, unfortunately we have to wrap it up, but thanks so much for joining us on The Creator Generation. It's been so good to have you in the studio and hang out and have a chat.
Thank you.
Thanks, mate.
See ya. And I do say this every time, but that was very interesting. And I think a particularly interesting thing is that even though Vsauce is a massive network, as Matt outlined, there is still opportunity for emerging creators to do exactly what they did.
Yeah, and that advice of just start, the opportunities are there. Bang on. Love it.
Till next time.
Bye.
Creative generation. Look on the mic.